My name is Natasha Phipps, and I am a real estate investor and investor-focused realtor and team leader of the Phipps Real Estate Group. This Facebook group that we're in here, Calgary Real Estate Investing, is run by our team, and our goal with it is to provide you value, opportunities, education, and a way to ask questions in a place that's focused with common interest. So today, I'm joined by two amazing ladies. Andrea Tessier is a realtor on my team, also an investor and investor-focused realtor. And then our guest industry expert is Sarah Kirby, and she is our expert in short-term rentals and is our partner that we'll refer to for the incredibly difficult job of running short-term rentals. So thank you for being here today, Sarah.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm really excited. So first off, can you just tell us a little bit about you and kind of like how you got into this and how you fell into this? Because I know you have obviously a real estate background as well first.
Yeah, so I sold real estate in the Calgary area for about 8 years, and I actually happened to have a team in Edmonton. And when I was up there visiting my team, I stayed in an Airbnb, and I got to chatting with the host, who was a lovely lady who had 8 properties, and she said, "This is all I do." And I said, "Excuse me, this is what you do? Like, you get to sit at home and just like chat with cool people?" Okay, just tooting my own horn that I'm cool. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I chatted with her, and I was like, "Okay, what can I do to try and test this model?" So when I went home,
Right.
I actually decided to put one of my bedrooms on Airbnb in my house,
Oh, wow.
and
Wow.
yeah, so I didn't understand pricing. I didn't understand like cleaning fees, anything like that. So I think I may have underpriced my property because it was booked for 3 weeks straight within 24 hours.
Wow.
So I had strangers
And you're
staying
like,
in my house
okay,
with me for a month.
we're doing it.
Yeah, it was very interesting. I decided though that I actually love the experience. I like the customer focused experience. I like the ability to make passive income for myself. And then I decided, if I can do this for me, I can do this for other people. But I did start with my own properties. I started with 3 condos that I actually rented from a developer. And I still have those 3 properties now, 3 years later. Made a lot of mistakes, learned a lot, created some really good systems, hired some amazing staff. And we went from 3, and now we have 70 active listings that are within our group.
Wow.
And we have investors who started with 1 property and now they own 5, because the revenue is a lot better than conventional rent. So you can pay down your mortgage faster and you can leverage your properties sooner.
Right.
So that's my story.
Wow. Well, and I think that's why we connected so well the first time. Like, I am all about people who are in the trenches. Like, you started doing this for yourself as an investor, right? To earn income for yourself. That's really what motivated you. And so you understand the needs of the owner here, from the owner standpoint, and that this is an investment and it's trying to make money, and that's your goal. So I love that you kind of like, I'm going to figure this out for myself first, and then kind of go out there and see if I can make a business out of this. So I really admire that. And I also admire how you speak also about the failures. Like, this is a very tough business. And even I think in your Instagram post yesterday, you were talking about just things that you've learned along the way, and you have to do that. And that's reality, right? That's real estate investing. There is no perfectly smooth path to success here and financial freedom for us. It's a roller coaster that we're all on together. So I really appreciate that.
Well, thank you. And I think I don't want to just be a highlight reel ever in anything. So I think it is really important to talk about failures and make it okay. Not only for yourself, but other people to understand, like, okay, maybe that filter doesn't mean that she's got it all together.
Totally.
And we're always learning. Yeah, and we're always growing, and every market's a little bit different. So we do operate in different markets, and I'm a little biased because I live here, but I also just love the Calgary market because it's very consistent. The occupancy hovers around that 70% mark consistently. The numbers are really good. There isn't a big seasonality swing. So a lot of our inventory is here. We have about 50 active listings here in Calgary.
Wow.
Yeah.
Andrea, maybe you could kind of talk, like, because I know you've had some of our clients Andrea's definitely been the one on their team that's kind of worked with clients the most in helping them get to the Airbnb strategy and execute it successfully. But I'm sure you have some like questions or common things that investors are concerned about or worried about when they're looking for these types of properties.
Yeah, I think, Sarah, what I'd love to hear is what type of properties, I guess, are in your portfolio, because I think a lot of investors get stuck on, okay, it has to be a condo and it has to be downtown. So I'd love for you to speak a little bit about that. And then maybe if it is a condo, what are some things to consider? Because I think a lot of investors don't know, okay, well, a lot of the condo boards in Calgary are restricting Airbnbs. So what's the best strategy? We have a list of buildings that we've kind of been working through, talking with different management companies to see which ones are short-term rental friendly. But that is obviously a challenge with a lot of the buildings in Calgary. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Those are both great questions. So the type of property, there's a few factors. So I like to understand what everyone's budget is. So if your budget is that 2 to 350, then I would recommend getting into one of those short-term rental friendly condos. There's really only 5 buildings that we operate in with 100% ish satisfaction and comfort that we know that it's not going to flip on its head and turn into something that's not Airbnb friendly. Wow. There are a couple buildings that other realtors talk about that, you know, it is Airbnb friendly, but if it's ambiguous, then my comfort level for an investor for long term is I just don't want to touch it. If they buy in there anyway and they want to give it a try, I'm not opposed to giving it a try, but if I had my preference, people would just purchase in the buildings that we have actively been operating in with success for years. And we ask the owners to make sure that if there's anything that changes in the bylaws, that we can take a look so that we can plan accordingly, because meetings do happen frequently and conversations do come up. So if your budget is anywhere from 400 to above, yeah, I think long-term success, goals, planning, it's to own dirt. So that's any single family detached product. There's some really great older duplexes in inner city and a little further out that are great. Anything with a suite. If you can get a suite, you're going to be shocked at the money that you make. It's insane. Anywhere
suite here.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah. And you don't have to limit it to what people think is successful. So a lot of people think, okay, I want to be in Killarney or I want to be in Altadore because it's right down in that pocket and whatever, but everybody travels for a different reason. So we have successful suited single family homes in Pembroke. Entry price there was about $350. Wow. It netted $50,000 after our fee. So I'm not familiar with what their mortgage is and what their insurance is, but you're not going to see those numbers with conventional rent, especially in Pembroke.
No, definitely not.
Yeah. And we have similar product in Sunnyside, other areas like that. They're anywhere between 50 to 70, depending on what the year provides for you. What's really important is your occupancy. So a suited property with 2 bedrooms up and 1 down is going to earn less than a suited property with 3 bedrooms up and 3 bedrooms down. And the unicorn is actually that Pembroke property because there's 3 bedrooms up and 3 bedrooms down. So we max out the occupancy there. We have a lot of families that stay there. We can command a really strong nightly rate year round because we can accommodate that occupancy that a lot of other properties can't.
Wow, that's huge.
Yeah.
So further out, like in the suburbs, do you have product in the suburbs as well?
Yeah, so we have successful product in Walden. We have successful product in Cochrane. We just launched a single family detached home in Airdrie that's performing really well. We have another one coming up in Evanston, and we also actually have rural product. So we have this beautiful house out in De Winton. We have another one coming up in Bearspaw. The location isn't as, I don't want to say it's not as important as you might think, but like I said before, people travel for so many reasons. So and people come to us for all sorts of reasons. We've had people inquire because they just are tired of having tenants in their lower suite and they want to make some really good money. So a lot of our basement suites, the owners actually live upstairs, which is a testament to how quiet it can be to have Airbnb guests and how having decibel meters in your properties can actually result in a better guest.
Okay, this blew my mind. when we talked the first time, I was like, "A what? Like, tell us about this, please."
Yeah, so we have quite a few steps that we go through to screen guests to make sure that they're appropriate for our product. We protect our product like it's our own, because I do have my own, and your money is extremely valuable to me, and your asset is something that we should be able to give back to you in the same condition that you gave it to us in.
Yeah.
So we make sure that all guests have to have positive reviews from other hosts. We don't allow new profiles that are not willing to send us their ID. So we do verify people who are brand new, because there are, you know, grandpa coming in from Kelowna who's never stayed in Airbnb, and he doesn't even know how to use the app, and he needs support to send an ID and all that fun stuff. So I don't want to turn away people like that. But the 24-year-old adorable kid who's just coming to hang out with his family on Friday to Sunday.
All right.
We do actually have age caps. So we don't allow anyone under 27 with 0 reviews to stay with us. 27 is not necessarily a magic number, but it's definitely better than 22-year-old kids who are just looking to have a really good time and really upset your neighbors. Yeah, so that's one of our screening tools. We do impose noise violation fines. We have a pre-booking message that does disclose that we have decibel meters in our properties, and that we do impose fines. So what this decibel meter does is it plugs into the wall. We do actually just double side tape it to the wall. We do put a little note on there, please do not unplug. And it monitors the sound level. So I can't hear what you're saying. I don't want to know what you're saying. But on a graph, it does show you how loud someone is being. And if that sound level is sustained for longer than 10 minutes, an alarm does go off in our property, and we get a phone call from the device itself.
Wow.
If it happens a second time, there is a fine that's imposed. And if it happens a third time, then we do cancel the booking and we evict people.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
that's the other thing about short-term rentals is you can, like, if they're breaking your rules, that you can ask them to leave, like kind of like being a hotel, right? Like,
so there's no tenants' rights, which
right.
is a really positive thing, especially if you're having, our average length of stay is 4.8 days. So you don't really want to have to be trying to boot people out every 4.8 days. We got to make sure that we're screening properly on the front end, and then we do have the necessary messages and tools in place to have them removed if we need to. Now, a testament to all of this screening and to these messages, we did not have one single noise complaint or eviction through all of Stampede with 50 active properties.
Whoa.
Yeah.
There, that should be your banner.
I know, and I was waiting.
Put that on a shirt.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
The year prior was, and Stampede was not even that exciting the year prior, and we had a few evictions and we did have a few noise complaints, but we, like I mentioned before, like we are committed to failing forward. So we've improved our systems year over year, and we've improved our screening every year, and we've also improved how we show up on the front end so that we're not having to do damage control on the back end.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Sarah, there's a question in the chat just about the decibel meters that you use. Is there like a certain brand or style? James is asking if it's a minute decibel meter.
So Minute is probably the most well-known one. Given that we have so much inventory, when I first saw the price point of Minute, I had some major sticker shock because they're very expensive. They're great for properties with like pools and properties maybe close to the water, because they actually do have moisture meters within them. So you can tell if there's a leak or something in your property, but we use Room Monitor. So Room Monitor is spelled funny, it's only one M, and they're a super cute company from Barcelona. Their customer service is just amazing. Like, they're the nicest people. Yeah, this is something that a lot of people probably don't know of or use. They're very basic. They're like these little tanks. They're tiny little squares. They're very like rough and dirty, you might say. Like, they're really, really basic. They serve their purpose, and that's all they're there for. They are waterproof, so we do have them outside in our properties in Kelowna, because we do have properties with pools, and we also want people to respect noise while they're outside too. The cost for those are $90, but there is a link if you Google, and I can share this with you ladies afterwards if you want to put it in your Facebook group, where they're $40. So I think it works out to about $52 Canadian. And then it's so cheap. Yeah. And monitoring is about $7 a month per unit.
Awesome.
Yeah. And they also will send you, if you ask when you order them, if you're ordering multiple or if you're working with us, we always have like extra boxes of cords, because that is the one thing that does tend to fail over time. They just crack and then they stop working, and you really want it to work. So they don't even charge for that. Like, they're just, I've had nothing but a good experience with them.
Wow. That alone is huge value right there. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, of course.
Or if you're leaving your teenagers at home and you're going away, for the
There you
weekend,
go.
guys. Mine aren't teenagers yet, but that might be a good future investment. That's really good. And anything else, Andrea, in terms of the like common investor questions?
So we had another question in the chat, which I have had a lot of investors ask as well, is I guess, what is the better strategy, rental arbitrage versus purchasing your own property? And again, I think it comes down to what your long-term strategy is, but maybe you can speak to that a little bit more.
I 100% agree. So when I was getting into this, I wasn't in the position to make a purchase to the amount that I wanted to. I didn't want to start with one, and there were reasons for myself that I didn't want to start with one. I was intending on building out a team, and to try and keep a cleaner happy with one property didn't really seem feasible. And I was terrified of losing a cleaner because I didn't want to clean. So I was committed to finding multiple units all at once. So that was why I went the strategy that I did. I do still do rental arbitrage, but the best long-term decision is definitely to own, because you're building equity and you're having someone pay off your mortgage very quickly compared to conventional rent. So I would definitely go an ownership route. If you want to build it quickly and leverage those rental arbitrage properties to buy another property, then that's a great option too. It's definitely more difficult to secure those than you might think. Trying to convince a landlord to rent you something that you intend on making a lot of money, you end up just having them wanting to manage your property. So I've failed miserably at trying to convert people to rent it to me, because by the time I'm done talking about what I love doing, they end up being management clients. So
Yeah,
if they are open to it anyway.
Yeah, and I'd like to add to that, and I know we've talked about this too, Sarah, but the rental arbitrage, it is hard to secure, especially now that the rental market is stronger out there and there's less vacancy. When there was higher vacancy, it was a lot easier to convince landlords to want to do this. Now that it's getting tighter, I just a word of caution out there. I mean, I have seen people going about that the wrong way, and you cannot, you have to do that the right way. And if it's not disclosed in your paperwork, in your lease, if you don't have an agreement and you are doing short-term rentals out of these properties, you are putting yourself at a high risk. And I do think there are groups out there doing that right now. I know they are. On a property we just purchased, the leases that I reviewed, I had no idea that they were doing short-term rentals, and it wasn't a permitted use. So now those investors, unfortunately, didn't align with what I wanted to do with the unit, and we've had to evict. And so but they thought they had kind of done it right. So just make sure if you're going down that road, your paperwork is correct and that everyone is on board with what you're doing and understands that that's the use that the unit will be taking.
Yeah, and I actually do run a mentorship program specifically for that. And I do have the appropriate paperwork that discloses that it is for the purpose of short-term rental, and all parties have to acknowledge there's a space for people to add an addendum if the building has specific requirements or clauses, or if they need to have a tenant intake form. Those are all pieces of information that you should know before you go down that route. You can't just pop in there, say you're going to live there, and then run it as an Airbnb. You're asking for a lawsuit.
That's right. Exactly.
Is what you're asking for.
Well, and then you have all these bookings and all of a sudden you're getting evicted, and now you've got problems with Airbnb. It's just, it's not going to provide you some longevity in the business you're trying to build. So as always, we always talk about do everything right, don't cut corners, build your foundation, and then the rest will follow, right? So that's amazing that you offer that as well, because I think that's it's such a huge opportunity, but it's something you have to learn that you're doing it the right way. So
yeah, and I think the difference for me was I at the time I was still a licensed realtor. So when I was renting property, there's no way I was going to compromise my license by doing anything that shouldn't have been done. So I made sure that I had the appropriate paperwork, and that's something that I share with my mentorship clients too, because it can be a very scary world out there if you don't know what you're doing.
Exactly. Well, and I think in thinking about the Airbnb strategy, people are obviously attracted to the income that it can provide. But, you know, when I'm in strategy sessions with people, that's their largest fear. Like usually the higher income strategies come with more work in some sort of capacity, which is obviously where you come in. And I think managing an Airbnb, there's a lot more that goes into it than maybe is expected at the beginning, right? So just build the cost into your analysis on a property. Just even if you want to self-manage it to begin with, you want to make sure that you can convert it to a manager later on. I always say you're not trying to usually buy yourself a full-time job with an investment property. You're trying to make passive income. So build it into your services. What about setting it up, Sarah? Like, I think that's probably another question that we get. Like, how do I, you know, do you help people budget what might be needed to set up this condo or this house for an Airbnb and everything that goes into that?
Yeah, so we have a few options. One of the things that you'll see when we do reports for people is we create a full-on report for your potential income, less property taxes, and then our fee, because we again don't know what you're putting down for your mortgage. And then we do project approximate furnishing costs. So if you want to go ahead and do it yourself, then at least you know what the budget might look like before you pull the trigger on making a purchase. The second step, if you're wanting to do your own install, but you don't know what to put in your property, we actually do offer a design install service. So we create a spreadsheet, mood board type thing where we show you, this is what it could look like. This is what every single item will cost, right down to the last spoon. This is the overall feel and theme for the property. And then we provide you links so you can buy it and source it yourself. If you want to do that, that's a very low cost way of doing it through us. Then we have our full turnkey service where we do the design, install, spreadsheet, mood board, you approve it. We take payment from you. We order everything. We house it in a storage unit so that on your possession date, we can steal the key from you, go ahead and do the install, have it installed and photographed within the first week of possession, so you can start earning money right away, because time is money. So
Exactly.
in a perfect world,
that is huge.
Yeah, thank you. In a perfect world, we're able to settle on the design install 30 days prior to possession. So 45 days is typically our preference. Sometimes we have much tighter timelines, and we can execute on that. It's just, we really like to pick through high quality commercial grade furniture. I want to make sure that the design is something that's going to look very different on Airbnb and VRBO, because it's not just about having a property in a great location. The design also has to be on point. We like to do wallpaper feature walls. We like to do themed, but not tacky themed. So we just did a modern farmhouse on a super cute upper portion of a half duplex. It's adorable. And that cost, I think, $13,000 for a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom.
Is that the hat wall?
No, so that's called, yeah, that's a different one. That's an upper and lower one. That was so much fun. I went off at Value Village with this. That feature wall was, I think, $40.
That was
so good.
Yeah. Amazing. And I think that's another thing I really like about how you look at this. Like, I find other, you see, here's my portfolio of Airbnbs and they all look the same. Like, it's all the same furniture, the same look, and you're trying to create an experience, I believe, with this type of strategy, right? Like, you want to stand out. I want to have a reason. I really want to go there. Is that kind of the hope here anyway, is just to stand out, obviously, and give people that unique experience? Yeah,
and you don't want to saturate your own market. So when I started with those 3 units, I didn't think about that when I first did it. I was like, here's the sofa, here's the IKEA kitchen, here's whatever else, let's go. And then I was like, why am I only making $110 a night? So I took a step back and I thought about what I would like when I stay somewhere. And I don't want to stay somewhere with generic sofa, 1 throw pillow, terrible bedding. So I actually redid all of my units, and those same units I'm charging $150 a night for now. So just the lift in decor, I'm making $40 more a night, which really adds up when you're looking at 70% plus occupancy. It makes a huge difference. It changed my life, actually. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So we make sure that we're also taking into account what else is in the area. We do have a lot of units in the same building. So we're active in Guardian, Annex, Colors, New Era, Sasso. All of those buildings, we have multiple doors. So we need to make sure that we don't look exactly the same as ourselves. We want to be dynamic and different and fun and have a unique stay. So even if someone stays in one of our listings in there is called Marmalade. So if they stay in Marmalade, they might want to stay in Mufasa the next time, which is like, we kind of safari themed on that one. And we also always name our listings because people can search for the name. It's really, really hard to find like unique 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom property in the heart of downtown. Like you're not gonna remember that, but little names like that, it'll generally stick with you.
That's a really good point. Absolutely. I would totally remember that. Okay.
Sarah, when you're looking at a property, I guess or if you're looking just in general, what are some aspects that would draw you to say, okay, this property could be a great fit for an Airbnb? Is it, I know we talked a little bit about location, but is it, floor within a building? Is the top floor better than the bottom floor? What are aspects, I guess, in general that would help you to decide, okay, this is going to be a great property for the strategy?
So that's a really good question, because as a former realtor, that was the first thing that I thought, like, okay, we need to be on the 20th floor. I want to have that beautiful view. I want it to be epic. And then we actually do have a penthouse in the Colors building. And then we also have 4 more in that same building. And that penthouse, unfortunately, does not make much more because most people aren't staying for very long. Like I mentioned before, the average length of stay for us is 4.8 days. So unless you're having like an ego date with someone or whatever, and you're really wanting to impress that person, most people are just here for a couple of days and they're bouncing out. So I don't think that there's a ton of value in exposure. So it doesn't have to be west facing or mountain facing. We literally have product that faces like a back lane, and it makes the same amount of money as a property 5 floors up facing the Calgary Tower. Like it's really weird, especially with single family product. We don't ever shoot the exterior of the home for security purposes. So your location is not going to be disclosed. From balconies, we do take photos. But again, a lot of people, when they're traveling, they're not really searching for that view, and you're not going to be able to command like $100, $200 a night more when you're looking at the difference in price point between $250 on this floor and what is it, $5,000 a floor normally. Yeah, you're not really going to make that back. So from a resale perspective, long-term hold, I mean, that is a factor, but for us, it really doesn't matter to me. I'll take it all. Yeah, and you won't financially suffer from it. So
that's really good to know.
It was a very long-winded way of answering that.
Was there any other questions, Andrea?
Let me just look in the chat here. There was a question about, I guess, then analyzing a purchase and the metrics. So I know that you do a lot of that for clients. So maybe you could speak about that as well. Just analyzing property and how to determine if it would be a good fit.
Yeah. So this is something that if people want to play around with some of the tools that we use, I totally support that. So you can get a little bit familiar with the process. I use a tool called AirDNA. I do not rely 100% on this because it generally actually grossly undervalues properties. And it also is not as robust as like the MLS system. So you can't really search condos versus houses. You can't really search, even sometimes you'll put in 2 bedrooms and it'll throw a whole bunch of 4 bedrooms in there because it's just not pulling the right inventory for you. So we do use that. And because we have so much inventory in Calgary, we actually use our own database to verify pricing. And then we also verify that based.
Oh, did you freeze, Sarah?
Yeah. Give it a minute.
You froze. That AirDNA program, I looked at that once, and yeah, that was my big concern with it, was that it didn't break it out in like property type, and I feel like that would be really critical to know. It's also, you pay per like area, so I found it pretty expensive if you're looking at multiple areas, but yeah, that's interesting.
I found the same, and it's difficult to find other metrics. I mean, you could use Airbnb a little bit to try and see what things are listed as on there, and what their availability is, but it can be a little bit challenging.
Okay, so Sarah's, we've lost her, but I'm sure she'll be back. Her reporting that she does put together, I was really impressed by. So I think that's a really good question. There was a couple, properties that my clients were looking at, and I was like, can you just take a look at this? And I didn't expect her to put together a full report, but her report does take into consideration startup costs, projected rents, what occupancy rate you can expect as well. So very robust tool, not something you want to like drown her in analyzing, but you know, when you're at that point and you're serious about this, you know, it's a strategy you want to do. These are the kind of things that we need to know. And us as your realtors are not, that's not our expertise. So that's why partnering up with Sarah has been so valuable to get her experience. So here she is.
There's a couple of questions about exit strategies and just, are there restrictions on Airbnb? So I think as far as we know, the city, you know, is very, very open to having Airbnbs. You do have to have a business license to run one with the city. And I know that Sarah had spoken about how her program as well, they can help support you with getting all of that set up. But it'd be more so the concerns often are buildings themselves, as lots of buildings within their bylaws have restrictions on if they allow short-term rentals. Many have restrictions that it has to be a minimum of 30 days. So in terms of an exit strategy, I mean, when you're looking at a property, depending on what type, if it's a condo, I think there, you know, you do want to look at purchasing, okay, if there were restrictions that came into place, if the bylaws changed or there was a vote that changed things, what are your options then? Could you still have the unit as a long-term rental? Does it still make sense? Or at that point, do you choose to sell? So that is something that when we work with clients, we do look to analyze as well to make sure that there are a couple of options there, because there can be some risk if it's a detached property as well, but maybe, you know, there's a little bit less risk there because you're not having a condo board oversee. It's then you're just following the city bylaws. And there we were just talking kind of about exit strategies. There's some questions about, is there any risk of the city banning short-term rentals, or how friendly is the city? So maybe you could speak to that as well.
Yeah, so Calgary is actually one of the best cities I've found as far as the ease of working with the city. It's very simple. It's actually something we do for you as well. We just register you with the city as a short-term rental. It's also one of the most cost-effective cities to do this in. So it's $100 a year for your average single family product or a condo. Once you get into the multifamily, it does get a little bit more expensive, but it's nothing like Kelowna, for example, is $750 for the year, and you have to disclose your exit plan. You have to show where all of your smoke alarms are. You have to provide a blood sample practically. It's very, very extensive. So this is a great city to operate in. I haven't heard anything about anything changing as far as zoning bylaws, rules, restrictions with the city. Airdrie does have a different type of a system, but it's also very easy to use. They approve it ours was approved within 48 hours. So I love Alberta for this reason.
Awesome. It's good to know. In kind of going back to someone's question about strategy there too, and like exit strategy, and the other thing to consider is financing. I did speak to our broker about this, and he said, you know, to purchase a unit or a house or whatever you're trying to buy, it's just considered an investment property. So you'd still be qualifying based off of your income. If they did need a market rent report to help, qualify you, the market rent analysis would be based off of just regular buy and hold rent. It would not be based off of Airbnb estimated income. So you have to be aware of that. As you get more and more units, like I do have a client right now where they have a few Airbnbs. They're converting one of them over to a long-term rental for the next year, maybe 2 years, and then going back to Airbnb because they need to kind of satisfy what their income levels look like to obtain another mortgage on another property. So there might be some massaging over the years, but the nice thing also about Airbnb is like you can pivot it, you can pivot back to it as well. It's not that you have to be, stuck here forever, because you may need to be a bit dynamic if you're trying to acquire multiple properties down the road. I do believe once you have enough history of running some properties in Airbnb, they'll look at it a bit differently, but in the beginning, that might be a bit of more challenge. Is that right, Sarah?
Yeah, so one of our investors, he purchased one of the properties in Sunnyside that we have, upper lower suite, within 6 months, because we do provide reporting at the end of every month. You can see your profits, your expenses with us, and then how much per stay was earned. He was able to leverage the short-term rental income based on those reports.
Within 6 months.
Yeah.
Wow, that's great. Okay. Well, and again, that comes back to like running it like a business, because it is a business. Yeah. Run it like a business. It is a business. And then your broker can make a case for you, right? That you're running this like a business. You're doing the proper reporting and the proper analytics and financials. So that's huge. I mean, the fact that you do that as well once a month, that alone is a massive tool.
Yeah, and then we do provide a year-end report, whatever your year-end is with us, or if you tell us, your year-end is February, which is a lot of people, or March, we do provide you with a full CSV file so that you can take that to your accountant if you're not wanting to try and hunt for your reports. And we do keep folders for everybody. So if you do the design install for us, we have every single receipt for everything that was purchased, for tax reasons, but also if we need to file a claim with Airbnb, we have all of that ready. So you don't have to be bothered with anything. We just process it and run it through for you. And that does make the process a lot easier and we have come into many people's properties that are already furnished. If you have that, it can make a claim a little bit more challenging because most people aren't keeping a Dropbox folder. And if you are, congratulations. But I didn't do that with my own house. I have no idea where half this stuff came from. I don't have the receipt. Yeah. So it just makes everything a lot easier for us and for you. And we do provide you with that at the end of the year. So you can also put that against your taxes so that you're not paying as much.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's huge. Yeah, I would not have thought of that either.
I didn't either when I first started, and then I had to file a claim. Like, oh man.
Yeah. What did that cost? I don't know. Where did I buy it? I also don't know. Or it came out of my house.
Yeah. And they are pretty good. If you find something that looks similar, they're pretty good with honoring that, but they're an insurance company. So their goal is to not necessarily pay out everything if they can get away with it. So if you have that hard copy receipt, there's no disputing it.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. Okay. Kind of a couple things I was thinking of to kind of maybe wrap up. Well, first off, someone who's considering, getting into this and self-managing versus going with a property management company. I mean, I could talk for a very long time about why I think they should probably go with a property management company, especially because you don't know what you don't know. And like even the ability to manage your cleaners alone, like your cleaners make or break your Airbnb business, I would think. But I mean, I obviously know your value, but someone who's considering like, okay, maybe I'll try to self-manage this. Like, can you just talk about like how quick these turnarounds are? How like this is just a constant wheel that's turning, communications 24 hours a day. Can you talk on that a little bit in your service and just how important that is for guest experience and smooth transitions?
Yeah, so I'll speak to you on how guests review a property because that will really determine what you're willing to be liable for. Guests can review you on accuracy, cleanliness, response time, and a myriad of other things, but those are really your three pillars. So if I don't know if you've ever stayed in an Airbnb and looked at the photos and be like, oh my God, this looks amazing. And then you get there and it's like, oh my gosh, what is this? So that's accuracy. And our cleaners are actually trained. They're provided with the link of the property. Then our QC goes in after the cleaner goes and they make sure that it looks exactly like the photos. So right down to if you look at our listings, all of the listings have towels that are rolled at the end of the beds. We do not allow a check-in if that's not done. If our little like snacks for the guest who stays isn't out, if the bubbly waters in the fridge are not there, we take photos under the bed, in the microwave, in the dishwasher. All garbages need to be emptied. And the cleaner has from 11 until 3:30 to do this. So checkout's 11 and really it's 11:30 because nobody checks out on time.
They're still packing.
So 11:30 to 3:30, and they need to be out by 3:30 because the quality control person has to go through. So I didn't have this when I first started. I just had one cleaner doing her thing, whatever. But sometimes she got busy, or maybe she was hungover or tired or whatever, and she didn't show up the way that she should have. There was no fallback. So I found out that she didn't show up as she should have from the guest. And that is never a conversation you want to have.
No.
There's also another tier associated with that 4-hour window where you have to execute. And that's if there's damage or if something's missing. During that time, we have handymen that will go in and they'll either remote quote so we can start to file a claim. If something needs to be fixed, it will be fixed during that time period. And the way that resolutions works with Airbnb is you have to file the claim before the next check-in because otherwise you can't prove who it was. So if you don't get that done, then you have now potentially lost that funding if you don't have the additional insurance that we carry, which I'll talk about after. So there's that. There's the cleanliness, and then communication. So when I first started, it was just me. It was actually just me up until I had 22 listings. Don't ever do that. Don't do that, because I had no life. I was literally sleeping with my phone on ring right here because I was so scared of missing a guest being locked out, or missing a late check-in, or Guardian South Tower, for example, the doors lock at a specific time. And if the guest doesn't get there in time, then we need to make sure that someone can go and give them a key or fob them in, because otherwise, where are they going to sleep? And that's a really bad guest experience. So when I hit 20 some odd listings and I was exhausted, I then hired 6 VAs. So I have 6 virtual assistants. They're amazing. They've been working with me for 2 years now. They work 24/7. They work in shifts, obviously. So there's 6 full-time, and then I have 4 backup and part-time VAs, because there are like high turnover times between 6 and 9 p.m. is actually when they're the most busy, because people are asking questions, people are checking in, they're, talking about how cute the place is or whatever. There's lots of conversation going on. And if your response time is under an hour, and that goes for general inquiries as well, your rating will start to drop. So if you're not showing up for those 3 things as a minimum at your absolute best, then your rating is going to suffer, and the guest experience will also not be fun, and they may not come back. So you definitely want to have returning guests. Our returning guest average is about 3%, which doesn't sound very high, but we have about 10,000 days booked as of right now for this year. So that's a lot of returning people. So I think if you're open to trying to do all of that, more power to you. That's how I started. But I think if you have a full-time job and you're not making this your next big thing, then it's probably better to have support. And we do have a lot of owners who like to be co-hosts because they're curious, and I totally value and appreciate curiosity, as long as you're not contradicting our team in the chat and confusing a guest. I totally support you being a part of it, because everybody has to learn somewhere.
Exactly. Wow. It's huge.
Yeah.
Anything else, Andrea, you can think of?
I think that covers a lot of it, Sarah. There's so much value that you've added. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So moving forward, guys, for anyone in the group that wants to pursue this strategy, if you already have property and you want to reach out to Sarah, we will link her information. We'll just make a link in the comments. But if you are new to this strategy and you're wanting to go out there and pursue purchasing something, certainly let us know, and we can put together a kind of hybrid, analysis for you as we go along, just like we do for our buy and hold properties or flips or whatever. This is no different. We want to look at it the same way, and we will work with Sarah to ensure that we're being realistic with our numbers. We are identifying properties that work, and then getting you on your way and executing your strategy. So I hope everyone got some good value out of today. I know I did. I learned lots of things. So thank you so much.
Yeah, you're so welcome. And for people with existing property, if you're curious about what it might make, we do reports gladly, no charge, no obligation, just so you can see what you might make with short-term rental, what it might cost, because people forget that part, and then what it might look like long-term. So I'm more than happy to have our team go ahead and give you reports for that. The same goes for purchase. We're happy to work with you, fabulous ladies, and send reports over to you to send over to your potential investors. More information is better than less. So we're happy to provide as much as we can.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
My voice is all screwed up today. Thank you so much for your time. I'm excited to be working with you, and I'm sure there's lots more to come. But if anyone has any questions, reach out to our team. We'll be happy to help you. And thanks so much for your time today, Sarah.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.
Take care.
You too. Bye.
Bye.